Hello everyone, welcome to A Clear Perspective. I'm Serene. Last Saturday, we briefly talked about Brazil's president blasting the Chinese Communist regime for creating a virus and allegedly waging biological warfare. Over the weekend, an Australian media outlet reported another story about the Chinese Communist military PLA's biological weapons research on the SARS virus several years ago, which also sparked a lot of public attention. Today, let's talk about what the PLA has been researching. On Saturday, May 8th, an Australian newspaper called The Weekend Australian published a report citing a Chinese book titled The Unnatural Origin of SARS and New Species of Man-Made Viruses as Genetic Bioweapons. The book described SARS coronaviruses as heralding a new era of genetic weapons and said they can be artificially manipulated into an emerging human disease virus, then weaponized and unleashed in a way never seen before. The book was published in 2015. It was obtained by the U.S. State Department during their own investigation on COVID-19's origin last May. 10 of the authors were confirmed to be scientists and weapons experts associated with the Air Force Military Medical University in Xi'an, China. The book has 18 authors. Only 3 of them are public health or epidemiology experts at local universities, while the remaining 15 are all military academics. The leading editors are Xu Dezhong and Li Feng. Xu Dezhong is a professor at the 4th Military Medical University in China. Li Feng is Deputy Director of the Epidemic Prevention Bureau of the Ministry of Health of the General Logistics Department in China. Xu is also the former chief of China's SARS Epidemic Analysis Expert Group. He was involved in the national and the military SARS prevention and control work in 2003. He was the person responsible for reporting to officials of the Military Commission and the State Ministry of Health. He reported 24 times to the General Office of the CCP Central Committee and the General Office of the State Council, and was interviewed by the state TV station CCTV twice. It is clear that Xu is a very important person. Then why is Xu involved with a book that considers the SARS virus to have unnatural origins? This involves an important background, which is a famous SARS conspiracy theory once propagated by the Chinese Communist Party. Some of you may still remember the SARS outbreak in China in 2003. Later that year, some Chinese experts claimed that SARS is the United States' genetic weapon against the Chinese. The hypothesis was based on the fact that the infection rate for Chinese people was abnormally high but very low for other countries. This absurd hypothesis was refuted by the scientific community at that time. But some members of the CCP's military, including Xu Dezhong, have been using this as a basis for propagating the claim that the U.S. wants to destroy China. And it is interesting to note that this conspiracy theory was completely overturned by virologist Shi Zhengli's discovery. She extracted all the strains of the SARS virus genome from bats in the bat caves of Yunnan in 2017. Come back to Xu's book. It has a total of 7 chapters. He uses the SARS virus as the foremost example and discusses the theory of how an emerging infectious disease can be made into a genetic weapon through artificial intervention, animal experimentations, and mass production. The book even discusses in detail what methods should be used to sow and administer these genetic weapons once they are used in warfare to achieve the best results. What's particularly striking is that the book clearly suggested that the Third World War will be a biological war, and that the central weapon of victory in World War III will be biological weapons. Of course, the central theme of the book is to argue that the SARS virus is highly suspicious and may be a biological weapon developed by hostile forces to fight the Chinese. It also discusses how one should defend and counteract it. In other words, on the surface, the book is about how to defend against biological warfare. But in reality, offense and defense are two sides of the same coin. It is difficult to distinguish whether the research is being used offensively or defensively because it is not up to the scientists to decide. On page 94 of the book, it details how human intervention can allow the virus to infect humans across species. Experts from various virology labs and research centers in China jointly published a paper on Science in May 2013. The paper announced that they mixed up genetic combinations of H5N1 avian influenza viruses and H1N1 influenza viruses and created more than 127 new viruses. Of this large group of new viruses, at least 5 of the superviruses have demonstrated air transmission in tests on guinea pigs. Why use H5N1 and H1N1 for the mix? The reason is simple. H5N1 avian influenza viruses are highly lethal but very difficult to transmit from person to person, while H1N1 influenza viruses aren't very lethal but easy to transmit. People suspected that this research was trying to create a new virus that was both virulent and highly transmissible. The paper exploded in the academic field at that time, with many international experts criticizing the CCP's research as ambitious without common sense and extremely irresponsible. The media reported with headlines like Chinese scientists create killer hybrid flu virus in lab. Therefore, this shows that the Chinese Communist Party was not doing purely theoretical research. It already conducted mass experiments 2 years before Xu Dezhong wrote the book. From this perspective, it is clear why this book, edited by Xu, was published publicly. It is to justify the CCP's development of biological weapons under the guise that foreign powers might have developed biological weapons against the Chinese. Of course, strictly speaking, the fact that the CCP weaponized the SARS virus does not mean that the current coronavirus was artificially created by the CCP. But at the very least, we can confirm that the CCP has been working on biological weapons development, and the Wuhan Institute of Virology is one of the relevant labs. So it is only natural to believe that it is the number one suspect in this pandemic. This is what we can say right now about the origin of the virus. The malicious cover-up of the virus and deliberately deploying it in the rest of the world is a different matter, which we will discuss in detail later. Next, let's take a look at BLM. Black Lives Matter's official website recently updated its 7 demands. They include convicting Trump and banning him from future office as well as all social media platforms, expelling Republican congressmen who tried to overturn the election, launching investigations on the Capitol Police for connections with white supremacy, and defunding the police, among other things. The last demand calls to pass the BREEZE Act. The BREEZE Act, as they define it themselves, is a radical reimagining of public safety, community care, and how we spend money as a society. Their promises are largely focused on abolishing the police, a so-called brutal and discriminating institution. Biden has already incorporated the BREEZE Act in his executive orders. Though he has been in office for only 100 days, America has already made a hard swerve to the left. To win the approval of BLM, he has tried to meet their every demand. The common theme behind the 40-plus executive orders signed by Biden is the reversal of Trump's legacy and the introduction of Marxist ideologies into all aspects of government. Recently, an anchor from the Epoch Times was on Fox News with Tucker Carlson speaking about Epoch Times suddenly having their congressional press credentials revoked. The Epoch Times was excluded from the Congressional Press Corps. However, CCP state-run media such as the Xinhua News Agency and the People's Daily were allowed to cover the U.S. Congress. As Carlson says, the Epoch Times is one of the harshest critics of the Chinese Communist Party. Why would the Biden administration do such a thing? So the Biden administration is calling on its allies to sanction the CCP while also helping the CCP suppress dissidents. Just how far have we come from Trump's stance against China? Pompeo has repeatedly said that the CCP and the United States democratic system are ideological opposites. However, the Biden administration does not seem to be opposed to that ideology. Rather, they seem to want China as an ally so that they can reap the benefits. In order to do that, they have been trying to overturn the American system. Statehood for Washington, D.C., packing the court, election reform bills, and allowing permanent nationwide mail-in voting are all attempts to alter the system and change its rules. Lastly, we would like to remind our viewers again that our platform may be restricted on social media. We would like to recommend the YouMaker platform to everyone. Our videos are available on YouMaker. Please subscribe and we hope to see you there. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you next time.